With summer ending and the world in absolute chaos at the moment, I feel like I could use a good vacation now more than ever. And while I can't exactly go anywhere physically, video games have always been perfect for escapism for me. They're full of fun adventures, compelling tasks, and interesting stories and characters to get absorbed into as a distraction from the outside world. So I decided to take a bit of a video game vacation into the world of Summer in Mara, a cute little game that seems to take inspiration from Harvest Moon and The Wind Waker. As someone who loves the island-hopping mysterious setting of The Wind Waker and just adores farming sims, this seems like the perfect combination to me. So, put on your life vests and taste that salty sea air. We're heading to Mara to see what this game is all about. Summer in Mara was developed by Chibig, a very small indie studio in Spain. They've made about 4 games now, so they've definitely had a bit of experience at this point. It's pretty cool to see more game studios coming from Spain. There was even a Spanish studio that worked on the last Metroid title. I always like seeing different countries grow their game industry and seeing how different peoples and cultures tackle game design. Summer in Mara puts us in the shoes of Koa, a young girl who used to live on her own island with her grandma before she passed away. It's up to Koa to keep up the island and stay alive by growing crops, picking fruit, fishing, and helping other NPCs. The tutorial here is pretty long, and is mostly just very slow quests of grabbing materials, craft something, grab materials, craft something. You get the idea. It's a pretty bad slog to get through, but I'm hoping things will improve as time goes on and the world opens up. So right away, I've got some thoughts. Presentation-wise, the game is okay. It never blew me away with any of its 3D models, but they weren't super problematic either, I guess. The 2D art and intro cutscene, however, are really pretty. Honestly, it's a shame these only appear when talking to people, because the art for this game really is beautiful. The models, unfortunately, are less so. Also, sometimes the sound effects were a bit grating. They feel very generic to me. I will say though, I love the music for this game. The tunes that play whenever you're working on your island, the unique themes for every character, the different versions of the main theme, it's just great. I found myself humming along to the music while farming, and it stuck with me even when I turned the game off. It just has a nice, lighthearted island touch to it. So, after a super long time just wandering around making stuff and trying to figure out what to do next, we get a visit from Napopo, a little shell person who is very sad, and we can't have that. So we've got to rebuild our boat, travel to Qualis, one of the islands of Mara, and figure out how to help. On Qualis, there's a friend of Koa's grandmother who can make us a map to explore. And here are where my issues begin to compound. For one thing, doing these quests is typically incredibly frustrating. I'll need to go grow or grab an item from home, take it back to Qualis, have to go somewhere else on Qualis, then back home to craft or cook or grow crops, return to Qualis again. Nearly all quests feel like bare bones fetch quests, and most of the ones I enjoyed were just optional side missions. Qualis has a lot of really fun characters that I enjoyed helping, and some quests I enjoyed doing, but none of the main story quests felt like anything but an excuse to block my progress. Sometimes you'll just be stopped randomly from progressing and told, hey, you have to go back home, grow this crop, and bring it before this person will give you the time of day. And even then, at some point they'll probably just get angry at you again and you'll have to go do something else. The pacing for the main quest is just abysmal. It's more of a frustration that slows me down than anything else. Normally, farming and side quests would help break up this pace, but so much of the game is locked behind main story progression, meaning that some recipes, items, or islands are impossible to find until you progress so far, and even then, quests barely have a reason to do them. You'll typically get a new recipe, food items, rarely some money. Money is pretty hard to come by in this game, which is a bit of a welcome challenge, but without knowing the rewards of a quest, it's definitely not the best way to get cash. Farming will be your main source of income, but there's a problem with that too. Farming is a tedious grind with little strategy or thought involved. You plant seeds, after a certain amount of days pass, you harvest them. Watering the plants is not required, but it does cut down the time they take to grow by 1 day. The only issue here is that Summer in Mara has no calendar system, no deadlines, no changes in season or day. If you want, you can just sleep over and over again until something is done without even watering them. You have very limited plots for farming too, so you can only grow so much at once. In something like Stardew Valley, you can plant a small farm or a huge one, and while a massive farm might earn a lot more money, it also means you'll need to spend a lot more time making sure those crops survive by watering them and crafting scarecrows. Because of the community center, and the limited time each season, different rates of growth, and prices, most crops in something like Stardew Valley have a niche purpose, even if only one is the most profitable. For example, in the fall you can buy bok choy, which doesn't give a lot of profit, sure, but they grow incredibly quickly and they're really cheap to buy. If you need a quick bit of cash, they're good, but not a very efficient investment. And while cranberries keep growing all throughout the season, pumpkins can give you a huge boost of cash at one time. Not to mention different crops are required for various tasks in the community center. Let's compare this to Summer and Mara. Take a look at the difference here between lettuce seeds and potato seeds. Lettuce seeds are about half the price of potato seeds, and both grow in 5 days. However, they both sell for the same amount, despite the fact potatoes cost twice as much. Unfortunately, without a system of deadlines and days, the time it takes to grow a crop means nothing but a minor inconvenience. There is absolutely no reason to grow any crop except for what sells best. In this case, potatoes are absolutely worthless. Wheat has the best sell price compared to the cost of the seeds, so there's never a reason to farm anything else. Not only that, but part of the fun challenge in Stardew of growing your farm at a nearly exponential rate due to more and more cash and more crops is gone here too. You have such a limited amount of places to grow crops, meaning every time you'll be growing the same amount of wheat. It also doesn't help that you can only buy 5 wheat seeds from the seed vendor, meaning even if you want to fill up your farm, you'll have to wait and come back to buy more. This means I tried to avoid farming unless I needed something specifically for a quest, which I quickly began to ignore except for the main ones as time went on and frustration increased, or ran into a huge brick wall in the main quest line that required a large amount of coins to progress. Similar to Stardew Valley, farming isn't the only way to generate money, but Summer and Mara kinda falls flat here too. You can only catch so many fish in a fishing spot before they leave, and it takes forever for any to return. Mining metals barely gets you any cash, and while the game has a ton of fruits to find through quests and different islands, they all have such an incredibly small sale price, and there's pretty much no difference between them, so no matter what you grow, they'll mostly just be used to keep Koa's energy and hunger up. There are animals to take care of, but they only give you resources if you feed them a certain amount of crops, and it's usually way more profitable to just sell the animal food and buy the milk or eggs you need in town. In summary, story progression in Mara consists mostly of frustrating fetch quests, an uninteresting grind to get enough money to progress, sailing somewhere new every once in a blue moon, and repeating this process. I can put up with my fair share of mediocre quests, hell, I like JRPGs, but some of these quests between main story missions feel like a deliberate way to pad out the game, which is honestly a shame because not every quest is like this. Not only that, but the quest log was often confusing or flat out wrong. For example, here I've got to find a way to talk to Sammy, which requires a secret phrase, a novel, and a shell. However, the quest log doesn't mention a secret phrase being required, and no one ever told me I needed the shell, it just showed up in my quest log. Often both main and side quests will not tell you where to go after completing an objective, and even after doing something they won't update you until you go back. Even if they aren't too different in nature and have some of their own issues, I found doing the side quests for NPCs a lot more fun. I really like these characters and I wanted to help solve their problems, even if it didn't get me any useful rewards. I loved helping Bram become a more confident chef and prove himself to Taka. I loved interacting with Mayo and seeing Koa be tricked by her schemes. I liked learning bits of history and lore from random characters. There's a really fun cast here and an interesting alien world to run around in, but the main questline rarely does it any favors. However, while Qualis has a lot of fun side interactions to do and things to learn, it's the only place you'll really ever go repeatedly, and running around it can be incredibly repetitive at times, especially when you have to wait around for specific buildings to open. The main story might take you to 2 or 3 different islands, but the rest are completely barren and devoid of purpose. Wind Waker does struggle a bit with making every island interesting and useful, but exploring the open ocean can still be fun. In Summer and Mara, however, sailing around feels like piloting a rocket ship rather than sailing. The boat controls just feel wrong. Every island is in its own area, which means moving tiles requires loading screens, which really ruins any incentive to explore for me. Even if you do go out to other islands, most of them are bland and might have a bit of resources or new fruits, but again, all fruits sell for very, very little and have similar prices, meaning those lemons you just picked up serve no purpose. What makes this so disappointing to me is that there are glimpses of hope here. This strange alien island is super interesting, and I liked walking around it and taking in the scenery. One of my side quests took me to this genuinely terrifying place, but once I got to the top and touched the tree, the island lost all meaning. I completed the quest and left. There were no new resources or interesting things to find. That's it. Because of this, nearly all of my time in Mara was spent just going between the home island and Qualis, ignoring all other islands at all costs. There's a fast travel option, but it costs money, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a tough resource to get most of the time, meaning so much of my time is just sailing between the two, and even with the upgraded boat, it still feels just as slow. There are a couple of other things to do in Mara, but most of them are just minor distractions. There's diving, but I only really ever took part when it was required. There are also some races against pirates that just did not feel finished to me. They just suddenly start, and the pirates don't go until a few seconds afterwards, and they seem to do some crazy rubber banding and slowing down. Here, I don't feel like I won this race at all, and in the second race, I have no earthly idea how I lost. The ship just disappeared, and I was told that I lost. Our overall goal here is to get 4 orbs to open a door and drive the invading Elets, an alien race obsessed with progress, out of Mara. The road there is incredibly long and often convoluted, though. Eventually, after a ton of quests trying to convince one of Koa's grandmother's old Navy buddies to help us, we get a map, upgrade our tools and boat, and eventually head to the location of another member of the now disbanded Mara Navy. Although that might not seem like much, the amount of filler fetch quests to complete means it took hours just to get to this point. Duna, of course, won't let us in, and now we have to travel back and forth, bringing food and objects until eventually she lets us in. So now it's time to figure out how to take out the Elets, right? No. She tells us to go home and live a quiet life, and now our story quest is to go find a sheep. This is the kind of stuff I mean when I say padding. Sometimes an NPC will stop you and say, "I'll help you if you head all the way home, plant these seeds, and give me the crops." Mara must not be in too much danger since no one wants to help me out, and I spend 10 days in a row sleeping so my watermelons will finish growing. Eventually, after finding a huge contraption polluting Mara and helping a worker fix a leak, Duna suddenly tells me to give up, and that's the end of that. The whole quest line ends that abruptly. We run into some pirates afterwards, fix their cannon, meet another person connected to the now defunct Navy, we race the pirates to convince them to help us, obtain our second orb, return to Qualis to talk to a bunch of people and waste our time, and finally we ask Sammy and Duna for the orbs they've been holding on to. Duna chucked it into the ocean, of course, so we have to go dive and find it, and Sammy refuses to hand it over as it's the last memento of Haku that she has. The main story really does have some sweet moments like this, of course interspersed between abrupt and intrusive filler quests. We cook Haku's dish from the start of the game, only this time we know the final ingredient, and with it we convince Sammy to hand over the final orb and return to the home island. Not only are the Elets already here, but they brought the Baron and things are looking grim. With the polluted water and the massive drill in the background, they now feel like a real imminent danger. The worker we helped earlier lets us escape the Baron and run to the door, where Koa speaks with Mara, I guess, reduces the Baron to atoms, and hugs her grandmother's spirit. With that, Mara is safe. Koa has accepted her responsibility as guardian, and her and Napopo enjoy some watermelon ice pops. For as many issues as I had with the main quests, there were a lot of genuinely good moments, albeit between some frustrating tasks. Not a bad story at all, you just have to get through a myriad of chores to experience it. Overall, I put 18 hours in a summer in Mara. While I was initially trying to do every quest I could, about halfway through the game I gave up and just tried to complete the main story. I waited for the first patch of the game to come out before starting, as apparently there were a lot of issues and bugs that made it difficult, if not impossible, to progress. However, I still ran into an occasional bug, oddity, or glitch here and there. I got a quest where Napopo wanted me to go get a ring by diving, but when I went to go put some trash in a bin, all of a sudden I got in a dialogue with her where she returned the ring to me, even though I'd never had it in the first place and I didn't speak with her to hand it over. There were several times when a quest didn't seem to update correctly and I got lost because of it. Obviously, Summer in Mara has a lot of room for improvement, and I want to pitch some ideas that might help mitigate those issues. This is what I'd consider the main problems to be in terms of the moment-to-moment gameplay. For one, it doesn't make farming fun. It's just a requirement to complete quests. And two, completing quests is rarely ever fun, and all it does is unlock another similarly boring quest to complete. So, we need to make farming more fun and meaningful, and the quests more rewarding. And for that, I've got a few ideas. So, let's take a look at Dragon Quest Builders 2. Stick with me here, I promise this is going somewhere. So, in Dragon Quest Builders 2, you have a main island where you can do whatever you want. But in the beginning, it's pretty desolate and empty. The game structure typically goes something like this. You'll travel to an island with some overall goal, talk to people in town, and build new objects and buildings for them through quests, etc., until eventually you complete a large main task on the island, like building a massive structure like a giant tree or a spaceship, and then you return to your original island with some of said townsfolk who will help you build and terraform your island, for instance creating a waterfall, a river, and a lake in the first area, or building a giant pyramid in the desert. And you'll also take all the recipes you learned from doing quests on the island with you. So not only is there progression that takes place on the individual islands, each one you complete gives you more things to work with when you return home. More recipes to make more stuff, more people to do more work, changing the overall landscape. Not only that, but each area on your island has challenges to complete that reward you with currency to unlock more recipes and items. These challenges ranging from building certain objects, having a certain amount of farmland, building specific buildings, you get the idea. Okay, so let's try to apply some of this tomorrow. We get to the first island, and there are some quests we need to complete. But taking and finishing these quests gives us more kinds of tools, more crops, more stuff to work with here and at home. Mara has some glimpses of this, but there are so few decorations to build and most crops have no value except for a quest or two. Additionally, in Mara, all your farming and building is done at home, but I think to make the traveling around a little bit less irritating, every island should have some bit of farmland for us to use. Maybe we have to buy it with money. Maybe we have to get it from doing a quest. Either way, doing work on this island gets us access to those crops, which we can take back with us to make more stuff or sell for money. The game's vendors will buy favorite items for more money, so maybe we build upon this and say fruits and crops that are not grown in that area should be sold for more there. In terms of quest rewards, what if people we help could join us on our island and provide services? Maybe they'll water one plot of crops a day, or give us more space to grow crops. They could sell supplies, or gather a bit of wood or stone for us to collect every day. Anything to change up the tedium of the island as time goes on. Another issue with Summer in Mara that I'm not quite sure how to tackle is the lack of a calendar or season system like something in Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley. Because there isn't a progression in time, Mara loses that bit of realism that could help it become more immersive. Not to mention, seeing how much time you've spent there is a fun, simple way to show your progress. Even just an achievement for beating the game in less than so many days, or for just playing for a certain amount of days, would give a system like this plenty of meaning, I think. In other farming sims, a calendar system also means more events unlock and the world changes over time. New crops can be bought and grown, new resources can be found, new people might show up, but with Mara never changing and its crops always being worth the same amount and poorly balanced, every day of farming is going to look the same. Summer in Mara doesn't need to implement a fully diverse season system or change the landscape drastically, just diversify the gameplay a bit. Perhaps in certain seasons some crops can be sold for way more, so you'll need to plant stuff depending on the current season. Because of this, the time it takes for crops to grow and whether or not you water them matters a lot more. Because hey, those strawberries might not grow fast enough to be sold at a high price this season. You may have to sell them next season when they're worth less. Without systems like this to change up the mundane tasks and allow you to do more, Summer in Mara fails to be an engaging farming simulator and lacks a lot of depth or thought. Obviously, all of these are some pretty big changes, but there are parts of the game that would work perfectly in this system. Random islands and even Qualis itself have small farming plots that are completely unusable. One of the early quests is there's a guy who needs corn, but he accidentally just bought seeds. You go home, plant it, wait, and then hand it over. But what if the only way to get corn seeds was buying them from this guy after the quest was over? Or maybe after helping him, he'll move his restaurant to your island, where you can spend some money on food in a pinch or sell certain ingredients for more. NPCs already buy favorite crops for more money. Maybe a quest will make them add or change their favorites, and they'll set up shop on your island to make it more convenient. And all these crops are already in the game, just fix the horrible balancing so no crop dominates and they each fill a bit of a niche role. This might be admittedly tough, since in a game like Summer and Mara, the time it takes to grow a crop doesn't really matter, but at least changing some of the sale prices could go a long way. Summer and Mara is just a couple steps away from depth like this, but as it stands now, farming is simply a means to progress, quests simply lead to another and rarely reward you for the effort, and the cycle continues for 20 hours. Even if all they did was add a place where you can spend money on some fun cosmetic stuff for the island, like furniture, new fences, or let you buy stuff to make farming easier while you're away, I think farming and earning money would have more of a purpose. Give money more of a use than just requirements for quests. You can spend it on some food or materials you need instead of finding them, but there's not really any reason to try and get money until the main quest asks for it in large amounts to slow down your progress. I had some really high hopes for the game. I even backed it when it was still on Kickstarter. My name is supposedly somewhere in the credits, but they're 3 hours long, and I didn't want to look for it at this point. Overall, Summer and Mara was less of a relaxing vacation, and more of a lengthy frustration. Every quest I enjoyed and every calming moment was surrounded by disappointment, frustration, and boredom. I don't think I can recommend this game. If it sounds interesting to you, I do think there's some fun to get here and an interesting world to explore, but I had to spend all of my time fighting against the game to get anything out of it. If I wasn't reviewing the game, I absolutely would have dropped it within the first few hours. But I powered through, and I left feeling very disheartened, exhausted, and unsure about how I felt about my time in Mara. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and consider subscribing or sharing it with a friend. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Real talk, this review was really tough. I almost wish I had dropped the game and moved on, but I kept thinking the end was in sight and I pushed forwards. Finishing Summer and Mara has taken a lot out of me. Luckily, I believe the next game I'll be tackling will be a lot more fun. I let you all vote and pick the next title, so let's take a look at the results, shall we? It was a bit of a close one near the end, but Pokemon Snap is going to be my next review. I'm pretty excited for this, especially with the sequel on the horizon. I'm hoping it will be a short, relaxing break after putting this video together, but I guess I'll have to see when I complete it. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.